Let's leave the noise of the day behind, just for a little while. Good evening, friends. I'm Mr. Narratory. If you're here, it means the day is done and the quiet has finally arrived. Tell me, what time is it, where you are right now, and what's your favorite way to end the day? If these stories bring you peace, consider subscribing, liking, or sharing them with someone who needs a little calm. Now, let's begin. You wouldn't find the garden by looking. It isn't marked on any map, and no one who's ever asked for directions has made it there. It appears only when you stop trying on a night when your steps grow slower than your thoughts, when the air feels too quiet to name, and when the sky begins to dim not from cloud or storm, but from something more gentle, more patient. That's when the garden lets itself be seen. You'll be walking through a field probably, or maybe a long dirt road lined with sleeping pines. Then suddenly, the edge of the world softens, and the light around you begins to glow, not gold, not blue, but silver. Silver like silence, silver like breath on glass, silver like something only the moon could have made. I found it years ago, or maybe it found me. I had no destination, just tired feet and a full heart I didn't know how to hold. The path curved once, just once, and then I was there stepping onto a narrow stone trail that wound gently between tall grasses, humming with quiet. The garden waited beyond. No gates, no walls, just the feeling of being invited. I remember that first moment so clearly, how the air felt like silk soaked in cool light, how the plants didn't look quite real, glowing faintly from within, like memory, like music you almost recognized. I didn't speak. I just walked forward. The moon above wasn't high. Then it hovered low, as if resting, its edges soft, its light almost drowsy. The garden didn't stretch far, not in size, but it reached deep, like a thought you've had your whole life, but only just learned to say aloud. I live here now, not in the garden itself, but beside it, in a small stone cottage tucked near the willow that leans into the pond. I tend the garden. I don't grow it. It grows on its own. But I listen. I sweep the paths. I whisper to the vines that curl around the trellis made of driftwood and stars. And every night, when the moon touches the soil, I watch new blooms begin to open petals, the color of sleep, stems that shimmer like frost under breath. Some grow only once, some return every year. They're not plants, not really. They're memories, shaped like flowers, hopes, shaped like herbs, and sometimes on the softest night sorrows, shaped like silver-leafed vines that wrap around your ankles, not to hold you, but to tell you you're not alone. And if you've come this far, if you're here now, I want you to know you've already arrived. You don't need to search anymore. Let your breath slow. Let your shoulders drop. You're safe in this place. You're allowed to rest. The garden has waited without asking anything in return. That's its way. That's mine too. Tonight the air smells like lemon balm and rain. The petals near the gate are beginning to unfold. It's going to be a beautiful night. The first bloom of the evening is always the same, though it never opens in the same place. It's called a saw leaf, though. That's just what I call it. You might call it something else if you saw it. Its petals are long and folded like soft wings. the color of pearl if pearl could blush, and it hums just a little when it opens. Not a song, more a feeling like a sigh, laid gently on the back of your hand. Tonight, it emerges near the center arch of the garden, in the curve of the stone path, just beneath the wind-dipped branches of the silver moss tree. I don't touch it. I never touch the first bloom. I simply stand nearby and greet it, hands tucked into my sleeves, shoulders wrapped in the old woven shawl I keep by the door. The moonlight has begun to shift now, low and deliberate, casting wide bands of silver across the garden paths, catching on the thin mist that rises from the ground just before midnight. Each flower glows differently, some like paper lanterns, others like moonlit glass. Some give off warmth, others coolness. None of them speak in words, but every one of them has something to say. I move slowly, brushing dew from the lantern stones that line the edge of the footpaths, placing small cups of still water near the base of the vine clusters, and listening, always listening. The garden is quiet, but not silent. The wind here carries stories, softened by time, unburdened by expectation. One breeze might carry the memory of a hand held too briefly. Another might bring the scent of a long-forgotten promise. Some carry nothing at all, and that's okay too. Not every breath has to be full. I light the tall, waxless lantern at the northern edge of the path, the one closest to the pale grove where the rootless trees bend together like dancers in a slow circle. Their leaves are just beginning to fall, each one drifting softly down and disappearing before it lands. That's what happens to the leaves here. They return to light. I often wonder what they remember before they go. I pause near the water stones, place my hand just above the surface of the still pool, and wait. If it's a gentle night, the water will ripple. If it's a waiting night, it won't. Tonight it stays perfectly still, like a held breath. That tells me someone new is near. The garden always knows. I don't look toward the gate yet. I don't need to. But I feel it, the hush that settles when a new presence arrives, the way the petals turn just slightly toward the path, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. And if that presence is you, if you've just arrived in your own way, in your own time, I want to say, I'm glad you made it. You didn't have to rush. You didn't have to know how to find your way. The garden welcomes even those who don't know what they need yet, especially those. Let yourself be still. Let your breath fall into step with the hush. You are not behind. You are not too late. The salif has opened. The air is rich with warmth, and the path is waiting just ahead, one soft stone at a time. By the time the third bloom opens, the garden has taken on its midnight shape, the one it only wears when the moon has risen high enough to leave its reflection in the still water pool and the air begins to cool in a way that feels intentional. The salif, now fully opened, glows a little brighter near the heart, as if warming in welcome. I pass by it slowly, careful not to let my footsteps hurry the silence, and make my way toward the curve of the west path, where the vines hang low from the arching trellis carved from wind-fallen driftwood. That's where the memory root flowers live, deep blue blossoms that shimmer with silver when you think of someone. Even for just a second, I don't know where they came from. None of the garden's plants were planted by hands. They simply arrive, grow, bloom, fade, and return again when needed. The memory root only opens if someone nearby is remembering gently, not painfully, not urgently, just letting someone's name rest quietly inside them. And tonight, they're beginning to unfurl. I pause there for a while, not thinking of anyone in particular, just letting the air carry its scent of time and rain, and I watch the petals stretch and glow. There's a bench nearby, carved from something that looks like wood but hums softly like hollow stone. I sit and listen to the wind moving through the vine canopy above. It doesn't speak, but it settles. There's a presence nearby now. I can feel it in the hush, the way the vines have stilled and the petals seem to turn their faces slightly toward the path. I glance toward the gate, and though I don't see anyone, the garden does. Someone new is here, or maybe not new. Maybe someone returned. The garden often calls people back without their knowing. Maybe that's what brought you. Maybe your feet found this place again because your heart never really left. If you've come back, even if only in thought, even if just to listen, thank you. You are always welcome here. Let that be enough. The third bloom tonight is a whisper-leafed, delicate spiral of petals, the color of breath on a window pane, soft and luminous. It grows near the low wall by the pond, half buried in moss. It blooms only in response to honesty, not confession, just truth, gently held. And as it opens, I feel something in the air shift a quiet permission, the kind that comes only when the heart is still and the night is long enough to hear it. I write in a small notebook I carry in my sleeve. The garden knows when you stop pretending. The moonlight catches on the water then, scattering tiny ribbons of silver across the nearby stones. And the fire-leaf ferns along the far path begin to glow at the tips, signaling the night's first transition. I rise, leave the bench behind, and walk toward them, each step slower than the last, not out of hesitation, but because here, time stretches with kindness. And if your thoughts are quieting now, even just a little, that's more than enough. You don't need to bloom all at once. Even here, even in moonlight, it's okay to grow softly. The fireleaf ferns do not rush to glow. Their light begins in the smallest places at the tips of each frond, where dew clings in trembling beads, then spreads downward slowly as if remembering how to warm. I kneel beside them, fingers resting against the stone path, and watch as they illuminate the edge of the garden's second curve, the one that leads through the hedge of starlace and beneath the low boughs of the cedar mirror trees. This is the quietest part of the garden, not because of distance, but because of intention. It's where guests walk when they are not yet ready to speak. The air here is thicker with stillness, soft with memory, and the scent of the starlace flowers pale silver with feathered edges wraps gently around the ankles of anyone who lingers. I pass beneath the mirror trees slowly, their wide trunks carved by time into soft spirals, their bark warm to the touch and dotted with small blossoms that catch dreams as they drift by. I've seen guests pause here, sometimes weep here, sometimes breathe for the first time all day. The garden does not demand what you are not ready to give. I sweep a few fallen petals from the path and place a smooth stone beside the edge, marking the bloom's presence like one might nod to a stranger on a long road. The moonlight is brighter now, not louder, just more confident, and it falls across the garden in long, slow drapes of silver white, the way music might stretch across silence if it knew how to land gently. I pause beside the star-lace wall and listen, and for a moment I think I hear it breath, light footsteps, maybe the hush of fabric against bark. Someone is here. I still don't turn. I simply say, softly, into the cool air, "You're safe." That's all. That's enough. You don't need to speak. You don't need to explain why you came. The garden knows the difference between wandering and arriving. You're here now. Let your heart catch up to your body. Let your weight shift without apology. I press my hand to the cedar trunk, and for a second the bark warms beneath my skin, a kind of wordless thank you exchanged between presence and patience. The whisperly flowers behind me are glowing steadily now. They've heard what they needed. I walk again, passing the spiral bellflower stall, swaying blooms that ring only when someone feels truly seen. They remain still now, but open. I leave a bowl of water at their base and continue toward the inner curve of the garden where the moonvine arch stands tall and quiet. It hasn't bloomed yet. It waits until the deepest part of night, and when it does, its petals open with a sound like breath being remembered. I pass beneath it anyway. The garden doesn't mind. It knows that not all growth needs to be visible. Some things open slowly. Some things don't need to open at all. And if you're here now, just breathing, just letting your thoughts quiet without fixing them, then that's your bloom. That's your glow. You've done more than enough tonight. There's a hush that lives only in the center of the garden. The kind of hush that doesn't ask for silence, but arrives when there's nothing more that needs to be said. This is where the moonlight gathers most thickly, drawn like mist to the old stone well at the heart of the winding paths. The well has no bucket, no rope, no water. It simply holds light silver that seems to glow upward from within, steady and constant, like a memory that has finally stopped hurting. I sit beside it for a while, on the small bench carved from blue wood, drifted in from a forgotten coast, and let the hush wrap around my shoulders like a second shawl. The garden is still moving, always moving, but here everything slows. The petals lean inward, the vines curl closer to their roots. Even the trees breathe more deeply, their branches barely swaying in the cool night air. A few steps away, the mirror cedars catch the moonlight at a new angle, scattering soft reflections across the stones in patterns no two eyes see the same. I've always thought this part of the garden was where rest truly begins, not sleep, but rest. The kind that happens when the body remembers it doesn't have to brace anymore. And if you're here now, pausing in this circle of light with me, I hope you feel it too, that sense that nothing is being asked of you right now. You don't need to grow tonight. You don't need to be bright. You just need to be. The moon vine above the arch has begun to unfurl just a little, its long silver petals curling like breath into open air. I hear them before I see them, the faintest sound, like fabric loosening, like a page turning in a book no one's holding. I make a note in the small book I keep in my pocket. Some things only open when watched with kindness. The still water pool at the edge of the clearing reflects the vine's movement, even before its petals are fully spread, and in the ripples I see something else, someone else, not clearly. not in shape, but in presence. The garden is welcoming someone again, or perhaps it already has. Sometimes I don't notice right away when someone joins me at the well. They sit quietly, softly, their breath matching the hush. I don't turn. I don't need to. The garden tells me they're here, and I trust that. I rise from the bench and leave a sprig of silver clove beside the well's rima small plant with bell-shaped blossoms that only bloom in response to gentle truth. It doesn't open right away. It never does. But it will. I walk once around the clearing, tracing the worn pattern of steps etched into the stone steps I didn't carve, but that have always been here, waiting for those who need to walk without being followed. And as I move, I think of you. Yes, you, the quiet one still listening, the one who's come this far into the hush. I don't know what brought you here. I don't need to. All I know is you've arrived, and the garden is better because of it. Rest, just for this moment. Let the light hold you. Let the ground welcome your stillness. You've done more than enough just by being. By the 6th hour of moonlight, the garden begins to glow in its own language from the moon above, though it still hangs low and kind, but from within. The petals that have opened now give off a soft pulse, not light exactly, but something close to understanding. It rolls across the stones, in waves too slow to notice unless you've been sitting still for a long time. And in this part of the night, most things have. The moon vine above the arch has bloomed fully now, its great curling petals fanned outward like the pages of an old book read only in sleep. Beneath it, the scent of crushed mint and rainwater lingers, and the vines below glow faintly like breath held in the chest just before a truth is spoken. I make my way to the garden's eastern path, where the night fern grows a low, sprawling plant that only blooms when someone nearby has remembered something tender. Not happy, not sad, just tender. A smile that came unexpectedly. A goodbye that didn't hurt. A moment when the world felt quiet, without being empty. The night fern is blooming tonight. Not wide, not bright, but enough to shimmer at the tips, like fireflies choosing to stay close. I kneel beside it and place a small, smooth stone on the edge of the path, a gesture the garden taught me long ago. We mark what opens gently. I stay there a long while, letting the hush settle into my shoulders, letting the stone beneath my knees remind me how grounding stillness can be. And if you're still here with me, even just listening, even just letting your mind drift at the pace of your breath, that's more than enough. You're not late to anything. You haven't missed what was meant for you. This moment, right now, is part of your unfolding. Let yourself soften into it. Let your ribs rise without apology. The garden is glowing not because it must, but because it can. So can you. From the corner of my eye, I see someone pass behind the willow near the edge of the pond, just a silhouette, light-footed and unhurried. They don't wave, they don't speak, but I feel them pause, just for a moment, and the air between us warms. I think they were remembering something too. The garden is full of that tonight tiny recognitions, quiet acknowledgments, the kind of shared silence that happens only between people who don't need to explain why they're still awake. I rise slowly and walk the edge of the pond, where the lily glass blooms have begun to drift toward the banks, their surfaces shimmering with color that doesn't exist anywhere. Elsa's soft silver lavender, the shade of forgotten lullabies. One of them opens beside me, its petals shaped like open hands, and I lean close just long enough to breathe it in. It smells like rain on warm stones, and the very first page of a letter never sent. I don't write that down. Some moments are only for living. I sit by the edge, legs crossed, and close my eyes. Behind them, the garden still glows, still breathes, still listens. It doesn't need tending now. It just needs company. By the time the seventh bloom appears, the night has taken on its full weight, not heavy, not pressing, but enveloping, like a warm coat that's already been broken in by someone who understood softness. The moon is at its highest now, not gleaming, but glowinga kind of silver that can only be found in places where time has softened its edges. The garden hums differently at this hour. The ferns no longer sway. The blossoms no longer stretch. Everything is still, not from sleep, but from fullness. It is the kind of stillness you only feel when there is absolutely nothing left to prove. I sit beneath the curled shade of the whisper bloom tree, its petals spread like the wings of resting birds, and I place a small folded cloth on the stone beside Mione I carry every night, woven with threads from vines that no longer bloom but still remember how. I close my eyes and breathe. The garden no longer needs my tending. It blooms without me now. My work at this hour is simply to remain. That's a lesson it took me many seasons to learn, that sometimes staying is enough. And if you're here, still breathing with me through this hush, I hope you feel that too. You are allowed to be here, even without answers, even without clarity. Presence is more than enough. I hear something Thena soft shift behind me, a footstep that barely touches the moss. I don't turn. Instead, I whisper, "Welcome," and mean it in the oldest, deepest sense of the word. The petals around the well brighten just slightly, enough to let me know the visitor has paused there. They won't stay long, most don't. But the garden will leave something with them, and they'll leave something in return, whether they know it or not. I rise after a while and walk slowly toward the northern arc, where the stone path forks near the twin moonroot trees. Their trunks bend slightly toward each other, always touching, never tangled, and beneath them grow clusters of dream shade, blooms delicate, star-shaped flowers that shimmer when someone nearby is beginning to forgive. Not a person, not a moment, just the self. And tonight, they are brighter than I've seen in many moons. I kneel beside them, press my fingertips gently to the cool earth, and close my eyes again. The warmth I feel has no source. It simply is. It spreads slowly through my chest, over my shoulders, into the base of my throat. A kind of quiet gratitude that asks for nothing, not even recognition. I stay there a while, just breathing, just being. And I think of you still here, still present. I hope you know this. You don't have to carry your whole story to be welcome in this garden. You don't have to name what aches. You just have to arrive. That's it. Let the stillness meet you where you are. Let the light recognize you even in your quiet. I open my eyes and see the petals have turned slightly, facing me, not in demand, but in understanding. The garden has heard, so have I. In the 8th hour, the moon begins its slow descent, not with haste, but with reverence. As though reluctant to leave the garden it has watched all night. Its light is lower now, longer, casting soft shadows that stretch like open arms across the path. The petals that opened in brilliance are beginning to relax again, folding inward not from fatigue, but from fulfillment, each one returning quietly to itself after a night of reaching. I move slowly beneath the moonvine arch, now humming softly with the memory of its bloom. The hush here is deeper, as if every stone and leaf has begun to breathe in unison. This is the hour when the garden feels most like a keeper of stories, not because it tells them, but because it holds them without asking for more. The glow has softened into something you feel more than see. I walk past the Stillwater Pond, its surface like glass, and stop near the twilight thistle beds. These flowers open only in the final third of the night. Their petals are dusk-colored deep gray-blue, with flecks of silver, and they bloom not from light, but from trust. Tonight, they are open wide. I kneel beside them and place a small bowl of lavender water at the edge of the path. Then let my fingers brush the edges of one bloom, just barely. It responds with a faint pulse of warmth, permission, not reward. These flowers know the difference. I sit back and close my eyes, letting the earth beneath me carry the rest of my breath. The garden is more than still know it is listening, fully, with its whole self. And if you're listening too, wherever you are, I hope you know this moment doesn't ask anything of you. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be certain. You're allowed to simply exist inside this quiet and call that healing. I reach into the small pouch at my hip and take out one of the pressed moon petals I keep there, flat and luminous, saved from a bloom that fell months ago. I place it gently beneath a stone at the fork in the path, not to be found, but to mark the passing of this hour. A way of saying, we were here. The night begins to stretch, just slightly. The air cools a little more. A breeze moves through the tallest trees, carrying with it the soft rustle of leaves that never fully fall. I look up and see the stars between the branches, still bright, still waiting. A single vine curls down from the trellis above me, brushing my shoulder, then swaying gently away. I smile and say thank you not to the vine, but to the moment. I walk slowly back toward the heart of the garden, passing petals that have gone quiet, stems leaning gently into one another. The memory root flowers have dimmed now, but their glow lingers faintly in the air, like warmth held in fabric after a long embrace. I don't need to write anything down tonight. The garden has already remembered for me. The sky is lighter near the edge of the trees. Dawn is beginning to hum. And somewhere, not far from here, another presence pauses at the gate. I feel it. The petals shift. The hush expands. And in that stillness, I whisper the only thing I ever need to say. You're welcome to stay, as long as you like. The 9th hour is the garden's last true breath before morning arrives. It's a breath held long and low, not in tension, but in reverencia kind of stillness, that asks nothing, explains nothing, and yet makes everything feel whole. The sky beyond the trees is a pale gradient now, not gold, not yet blue, but the soft in-between shade that only exists for a few minutes each day. It feels like quiet hope. I walk the southern edge of the path slowly, my hands tucked into the folds of my shawl, the fabric carrying the scent of petals that bloomed and folded again, of tea left to steep too long, of something soft I can't name but never forget. The garden has dimmed, not darkened dim. Its glow is thinner now, stretching wider and lower, settling into the roots and the stones as if the light is preparing to sleep. The whisperleaf tree has gone completely still, its blossoms tucked in like children beneath blankets. The moonvine petals, once spread wide like wings, have begun to fold back toward the arch, curling in slow spirals that feel like breath winding down. I pass by them gently, brushing one with the edge of my sleeve, and it hums faintly, like a string plucked in a distant room. The well in the garden's heart glows softer now, its silver light barely pulsing, a single thought held quietly beneath the surface. I kneel beside it and whisper, not because anyone needs to hear it, but because the hush here makes you want to be kind. You did well tonight, I say, not to the well, but to the whole garden. Maybe to myself, maybe to you. I don't always know the difference. Behind me, the wind passes through the fireleaf ferns, stirring a shimmer that barely lifts above the stones. The twilight thistle petals are closing. The night fern has gone still. Only the smallest blooms remain open, the ones that wake just as the others rest. I light the last of the garden's lanterns, the one closest to the eastern edge, where the first rays of morning will arrive. It's small and low and flickers in a way that feels more like memory than fire. I leave it there without words. Not all light needs to guide. Some of it just keeps you company. As I return along the path, the sky has begun to shift more surely now. The stars fade without apology. The trees bow lower, their leaves rustling in soft farewells. I find myself at the bench near the cedar mirror trees, where the stone is still warm from earlier, and I sit again letting the silence stretch all the way through my chest. And if you're here with me still, if your breath is slower, your thoughts softer, I hope you feel what I do now, that you didn't miss anything, that you were part of this simply by arriving. The garden holds you in ways you may never see, but it does. It always will. Across the pond, one final bloom begins to rise its petals like pressed silk, glowing faintly with the last of the moon's gift. It doesn't need to open fully. It just needs to be here, like you, like now. The 10th hour arrives not with fanfare, but with light not sudden, not bold, just soft illumination slowly brushing across the highest leaves, then the moss, then the petals that haven't quite closed. The sun hasn't yet crested the trees, but its presence is known in the way the shadows shift direction, in the way the hush takes on a golden edge. The garden stirs, not with sound, but with the kind of breath that comes after rest long, steady, unforced. I walk the path for the last time tonight, my steps slower than before, not from fatigue, but from wanting to savor. Everything around me has begun its gentle retreat into soil and stem, light folding inward like a letter sealed with silence. The memory root flowers have dimmed to a soft slate gray. their silver glow tucked gently beneath their petals. The fireleaf ferns are curled, tips resting together in still embrace. The whisperleaf tree no longer hums, but stands tall and knowing, as if it has watched something kind unfold. I return to the well, where the silver glow is almost gone. I trace my finger around its stone rim and say nothing. Some farewells are better left quiet. From the corner of my eye, I see the last bloom, just one still, fully open. It's a moon petal, pure white and wide, cupped upward like a hand, offering nothing but presence. Its center catches the first strand of sunlight as it breaks through the trees. That light bends through the petal and refracts outward in a brief shimmer there and gone like a sigh. I kneel beside it. I don't touch. I just stay for one more moment, for the breath between. And if you're still here, if you've walked this full night with me, I want you to know something simple and whole. You brought light with you. You didn't wait for dawn to arrive. You carried a glow through every quiet part of this garden. That's what presence is. That's what healing can be. You didn't need to change to belong here. You were part of the hush from the moment you paused, and you always will be. I rise slowly, place one final smooth stone at the edge of the path, and turn toward the cottage nestled beyond the willow tree. The window is warm with morning light now. Inside, the kettle waits. The shawl slips from my shoulders, and I fold it over my arm. Behind me, the garden begins its day rest. The petals draw in, the vines tuck closer to the soil, and the moon, now pale and faint in the brightening sky, begins its gentle descent beyond the trees. Nothing has ended. Nothing ever truly does here. The hush simply folds inward, resting until it's needed again. And it will be, perhaps by you, perhaps by someone else who wakes up knowing they need softness more than answers. I reach the cottage door, hand on the latch, and pause to look back once more. The path is empty, but the stillness remains, and in it, your presence still glows. Thank you for walking this night with me. Thank you for letting the garden carry a little of your quiet. You are welcome here, always. Thank you for walking through the garden with me. I hope the hush, the light, and the quiet company brought you the rest you needed. You're always welcome here just as you are. If this story brought you peace, feel free to let me know in the comments. I love hearing which moment felt like yours. And if you'd like more soft stories like this low and safe and made for sleep, consider liking and subscribing. It helps me keep the lanterns lit and the garden glowing. Until next time, rest well and sleep gently.